What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we're talking wildcard drafts for game week 13. There's a lot of fixtures coming up thick and fast soon, so we're not going to get too many more opportunities to talk about that probably until January, February at this point. And as it's the international break, we can do a couple of different videos. So I've seen a few drafts knocking about. A few people have popped their wildcard this week, so I've gone through some kind of must-haves, some key decisions, and then I'll take a final look at the draft. Before we jump into that, though, I did want to say this video has kindly been sponsored by OneFootball once again. It's completely free to try out, so if you haven't already, make sure you do. iOS, Android devices, all you need. Search for OneFootball in the app stores, or just click on the link in the description below, and that'll take you straight through to it. Loads of football news, FPL news, everything you want as an FPL manager, basically, including live scores at the weekend, which is super handy. So it's completely free. Check it out, see what you think, and go from there. So let's take a look at some potential must-haves first of all, before we take a look at the draft. Cheap goalkeepers still. I think I've done a few of these videos and I've always talked about cheap goalkeepers. They're right up there with some of the top scoring goalkeepers this year. Premium keepers haven't really shown their value, and still we're in the position where you know, if you were looking at Alisson, for example, at Liverpool, you're much better off getting the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold or Robertson instead. So they're not really worthwhile. Pope is who a lot of us have been on. Henderson for Sheffield United is looking really good, and with Sheffield United's upcoming fixtures, it might even be worth a double up of Lundstram and the goalkeeper. The problem there is Henderson can't play this week because it's against Man United in game week 13, and he's on loan, so he can't play in that game week. So if you're on a strategy where you've got two cheap goalkeepers who are playing, so maybe not gone for the likes of Button, then you could go for Henderson plus one other one that rotates pretty well. Otherwise, it would be pretty frustrating to have him this week. So you're still looking at the likes of Pope or Ryan. Ryan's doing really well at the moment. Fixture-wise, Heaton looks pretty decent right up until January. But I'd probably still side with Ryan, even though he's got some tougher fixtures. There's save points potential there. I think he came away with 7 points, even though Brighton lost 3-1 to Man United, which is pretty decent. And I still think the likes of Pope, although they're about 10 points behind at the moment, plenty of time to catch up. So Pope or Ryan for me right now. Henderson if you're on a double kind of cheap goalkeeper strategy. But yeah, definitely cheap. I think they're providing value, and they'll continue to do so for the rest of the season. I just don't really want to spend 5 million at the moment for the likes of Dubravka or maybe Schmeichel instead. Leicester and Liverpool, got to have players from these teams. We already all know that. Providing excellent value. Liverpool got really good fixtures to come as well. So we've already spoken plenty about that. Mane, Salah or Trent Robertson, depending on if you want to double up in defence or attack. But I'd at least have two. One defender, one attacker. They're quite highly owned for a start. And absolutely captain options over the next few weeks in terms of Mane and Salah. Obviously, we've got to wait and see what happens with Salah's ankle, but I'd imagine he'll be back after the international break. But let's see what Klopp says. And then Leicester are offering so much value, even if you've not got on their players yet. Maddison and Tielemans still great value. Vardy, arguably the best striker to buy at the moment. He's 9.5 million, so not exactly cheap. But again, if you need a bit of a captain option, he's got some fixtures coming up that you might want to look at captaining him in for. Completely nailed, coming up to Christmas, going to play 90 minutes pretty much every game, penalties, etc. There's nothing not to like about Vardy at the moment. Lundstram the enabler. Now, if you follow my videos and stuff, you know that I've not got Lundstram, so I'm going to have to pay 4.9 million. Even at that price, he feels like a little bit of an enabler still. He's still not at the premium price of kind of 5.5, 6 million plus. But if you've had him since 4 million, you have to keep him. There's no reason not to. Top scoring defender, playing in midfield, goal threat, clean sheet potential in that great Sheffield United defensive team. Absolute must have for me. Cheap defence is probably where I would go right now. We've got Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson providing pretty good value for expensive players, and if they can get some clean sheets soon, that value will increase. But there's not too many other expensive defenders that I'm liking the look of right now. Man City are just too hard to call who's going to play, without Laporte not looking great either. Chelsea, we've got Tomori, who's like providing really good value. Arsenal just no good either right now defensively. So I think cheap defence, the likes of Soyuncu still quite cheap, Lundstram obviously, and Tomori as well, and then maybe one Liverpool defender. That's kind of the way that I would be looking. And then 3 at the back. I think 4 and 5 at the back have done okay. I don't think, you know, if you want to go 4 or 5 at the back, that's completely fine. I don't think it's an awful decision, especially 4 at the back. 5 I think is probably a little bit too much, especially because your bench options have to be cheap and they're not likely to play, and we are coming up to a lot of game weeks in quick succession, so it's nice to have different options. So I prefer to play 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, and then the 2 defenders on your bench can play as and when needed. So that's kind of what I would consider must-haves right now. So some of the key decisions if you're on wildcard this week that you're probably going to have to think about is whether or not to have Man City players or not, who your captains are going to be over the next few weeks, and whether to have a strong bench for Christmas. So I've spoken about some of these things already on videos this week, on streams and stuff like that, so I don't want to go into too much detail. But Man City is a tricky one. I think there's no doubt that they will continue to score points. They're not looking great as a captaincy option, but this week in particular, game week 13, they do play Chelsea at home, and potentially you might want to captain a Man City player. But if you've got the likes of Jamie Vardy, who's playing a side that are without Dunk, he's now suspended for that game, who just lost 3-1 to Man United. And to be fair, Leicester probably a slightly better attacking team so far this season. Vardy could be an option for captaincy there. Liverpool playing Crystal Palace away. That also might be another captaincy option. So Man City players are tricky right now. I have Kevin De Bruyne in my actual team. And if I was wildcarding, I might look at going without for now. Just remember, even if you're wildcarding now, it doesn't mean you have to stick with this team for the rest of the season. If you went for 2 Liverpool attackers, for example, you could switch one of them back to a Man City player down the line. So I think if you go without Man City players, obviously have in the back of your mind, they will score points. Don't get rid of them thinking they're never going to score any more goals. They've scored way more goals than anyone else in the league so far, and that will probably continue. But the fixtures aren't as easy as maybe they have been. So from a captaincy point of view, you're probably not going to go for Man City players. But that's not to say you shouldn't drop them completely. If you've had Kevin De Bruyne since he was 9.5 million, for example, that probably isn't the end of the world to keep him. Captaincy options. So I think over the next coming weeks, you're probably looking at Vardy and Mane or Salah. I think Mane probably looks the best bet because he's been completely fit for most of the season. Looks in really good form as well, and just been scoring generally really well for Liverpool. Salah a good option as well potentially, but obviously that ankle injury is still a worry. There's obviously still something there for him to pull out of Egypt. Yes, it could be an international break injury, but because he's had it already this season, a few worries about it. That does concern me slightly, so a little bit worried about him. And Jamie Vardy just in such good form. Up until about, I think it's about game week 18, 19, he has some really nice fixtures as well, so he could be a captaincy option. So definitely consider that when you're building your team, who you're going to captain. And then bench for Christmas. So every year we go through, there's loads of games over Christmas, they come in quick succession, we're going to need a strong bench, there's going to be lots of rotation. But to be fair, in the last season or so, that hasn't really happened. A lot of the players we've kind of had in our sides have played every single game, or at least good minutes in most of those games. So having a strong bench isn't necessarily why, I wouldn't necessarily have a strong bench just because of rotation, but you also want options. If a player gets injured, like if a player's just got injured in the last game week and they're going to be out for a couple of weeks, so that's probably okay. The international break is 2 weeks long. And you can keep that player. Whereas over Christmas, in 2 weeks, you might have 3 or 4 games. And so if you get a player out injured, they're out for a lot of game weeks. So you might want to keep that player. Maybe you've got a lot of money invested. Maybe you've got other priorities to make. Maybe you want to bring in a captain, for example. So if you've got a strong bench, perhaps you can bring in one of those bench players as well. So there's a few weeks coming up where if you've got the likes of Lundstram, Tomori, Soyuncu, and a Liverpool defender, you might even want to play all of them. So having a strong bench is not a bad idea. It doesn't have to just be because of rotation. It can be just to give you options. Maybe one of your defenders has got a really bad fixture down the line in like game week 17, 18. So you can bring on one of your bench players, bench the other guy, and go from there. So definitely consider a strong bench. I think because of the cheap defenders and stuff like that, it's definitely worth it. Captaincy options, Mane and Vardy looking really exciting for me. And Man City players, it's completely up to you. I wouldn't necessarily be fearful about not owning them, but just keep in the back of your mind, they're not going to stop scoring goals anytime soon. So this is the draft that I've come up with. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way first. There's some yellow flag players. Obviously, this is being recorded and put out over a week before the deadline, so we might get some more news in that. I'd expect Jimenez and Salah will be fine, but you never know. And obviously, if they're not going to play, you probably don't want them in your teams. Also, player prices. You might have higher team values, so you can get better players in certain positions. Maybe instead of Tielemans, you've got enough money to get Maddison, for example. Maybe you have got enough money to go kind of Mane plus 2 Liverpool defenders and still have Sterling, or maybe you've got Mane, Sterling, De Bruyne, whatever it might be. Obviously, everyone's team is different. If you got Lundstram for 4 million at the start of the season, you're laughing. If you bought Mount at 6 million, maybe that's even harder to sell, but also gives you more money to spend elsewhere. But this is the team I've come up with, my budget. Now, in goal, like I said, Ryan or Pope is probably the one. Obviously, Ryan's the top scorer right now, but it's hard to say whether that will continue. Fixture-wise, they're pretty even. I just like the idea of the fact that I wouldn't have another wildcard for a while now. And Ryan's doing so well anyway, that having the Ryan Button combo could be pretty decent. Yes, it's very unlikely that Ryan will get injured and you'd need Button, but maybe if it does happen, you've got that backup there without having to make another transfer, and you're still basically back in Brighton. In defence, I'm still going to go for one Liverpool defender for sure. I think they've got good fixtures coming up, as I've already spoken about. Good attacking potential, as we know. And if they can knock up some clean sheets together, there's some double-figure hauls around the corner for both Trent and Robertson. Now, Trent Alexander-Arnold is more creative. Expected assists and stuff like that is higher than Robertson so far, although Robertson has scored more points so far. So I still think it's really close. Like, if you're more of a Robertson fan, just go for him. I don't think there's going to be too much in it. And then defence is pretty kind of standard right now. Soyuncu just playing for Leicester, posting really good defensive stats, really good fixtures to come. Even Chelsea, in terms of kind of shots conceded in the box, they're doing really well this year. Even though if you think about how they have defended and how many goals they've conceded, not looking that great. But with Kante back and maybe at some point Rudiger back as well, that could really help tomorrow. So I think they're just such good value, it's hard to go without them. And Lundstram has to be, and I don't have him in my main team. That cannot last for much longer. From Game Week 15, Sheffield United's fixtures are really good, and I do honestly think a double up could work really well. So you've got a cheap defence. I think, again, if you've already got Rico in, for example, from 4.1 million, you would go for him. For me, I haven't got him. I didn't get Lundstram at 4 million, etc. So I've put Taylor in. Now, he played the last game, so it'd be interesting to see if he keeps his place for Burnley. And that might be another way to cover Burnley's clean sheets if he does, rather than having Pope in goal. So he's 4.2 million, so he's kind of the enabler for this team. Yes, I would like 5 absolute nailed-on playing defenders if I could afford it. But with this team, I can. If you can, absolutely go for someone else instead of Taylor. In midfield, so first thing you'll notice, no Man City players. Is that a risk? Is that fearful? Absolutely. But if I take Mane out and put Sterling instead, then great, I've got Sterling, I'm not fearful of him, but I'm fearful of what Mane might do. And it's who do I fear most? Because if I fear Mane more, then that kind of implies that I think he's going to score more points. And when the fixture's coming up, I think that's quite possible. Obviously, in Game Week 18, they do have a blank, so thinking ahead to that, that might be a time to switch them. They have got quite a few games like every other team, but Liverpool are kind of brilliant because they don't rotate that often. So the likes of Salah and Mane are really good value. So just because of how good their fixtures are, I go for almost a differential in owning 2 Liverpool attackers instead of 1 Liverpool, 1 Man City. But again, if you've got the team value to have both of them plus Man City player, you should absolutely do it. Then Donker is my enabler. I think around 4.4 million. There's really not much in it. You just get one that plays week in, week out, and hope for the best after that. I'm still keeping Mount, although if I had the money, I'd be tempted to switch to Pulisic. I think his attacking potentials look really good since he's been in the side. He looks pretty much first 11, although I still think at some point Hudson-Odoi is going to get a game here or there with all this fixture pile up, and Pulisic will miss out. He's definitely a tempter for his price. Mount not been doing so well recently, but he looks pretty nailed in that Chelsea team, and isn't going to miss out anytime soon. There's rumours or discussion in the FPL community about him maybe missing out versus Man City because they're going to play kind of Kante, Kovacic, etc. I just don't see it. Lampard has barely rested him at all, both at Derby and Chelsea. So I think he's still going to play, and he still offers good value, especially if you've got him cheap. But I would say he's probably actually the one in this team that would probably be first to go if I did make a change or if I had a bit more money. So I do like him still. And I still like Chelsea. They're still scoring lots of goals, and I don't see that kind of letting up. I think he probably would be not the weak link in this team, but the one that I'd maybe look at going for. And if I had like kind of Pulisic or something like that instead, he would be the one to go for. Tielemans is in from Leicester. I think Leicester offers such good value. I have to triple up on them. Might be template, might be boring, but they're just so good right now. Second in the league, etc. Doing fantastically well. Now, I've said it a lot in videos. I'd probably go Maddison if I had the money. He is 7.5 million, so it is quite a lot more. But you get the set pieces as well. I think he's still got goal threat and assist potential, really creative too. But I'm not sure there's a huge amount in them. So if you haven't got the money, or you're trying to really kind of save some money somewhere, then that move Maddison to Tielemans could be pretty decent. And then up front, this is definitely the template. If you're playing 3-4-3, this is the template strike force right now. Vardy, Jimenez, Abraham. It's really difficult to look past it. Abraham has almost been as good as Vardy has this year. Played a few less minutes, but really keeping up with the points. So he's definitely in. Vardy has to be captain potential coming up. I think one of the games I've earmarked him for, he plays Watford at home the same week that Liverpool play Everton at home. Not to say that Liverpool won't win that game, but obviously it's a derby. Sometimes they can be tight. Maybe a red card here or there could affect the game, depending on which side obviously gets it. But you would expect Liverpool to win that, and no harm in captaining them. But Vardy against Watford could be a really good option as well. So he has to be in the team. And then Jimenez in such good form. Wolves doing as well as they kind of did last year. So I'm expecting them to push on, completely nail, gets penalties, or kind of shares penalties. But hopefully he'll get some penalties over the next few weeks. And Wolves fixtures are really good. So this is the team that I will go for right now. 3-4-3. You're going to have benching headaches some week because the defenders are so good, but so be it. It's not the end of the world to have bench points. It is obviously frustrating, but that means those bench players are probably going to rise in price. And when you want to call upon them, hopefully they can get you some points as well. So I'm sure there's some changes you make to this team. Obviously, it is quite template. You would say, you know, this team looks very similar to the team I've got now, and it's probably similar to what I would build if I had a wild card. Definitely need to get Lundstram in, definitely want Mane as well. Let me know what you think. Is there any players I've completely overlooked? How would you change your team? Would you play 3-4-3, 3-5-2, etc.? Let me know in the comments below. So that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like. I know everyone enjoys a wildcard draft video, and this will probably be the last one for a little while. So make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. Hit that notification bell so you know when the next lot of videos are going live, when I'm live streaming, all that kind of good stuff. And leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think, what I've missed, any questions you've got for your wildcard team, etc. I'll have another video out probably on Sunday. Not quite sure what it will be yet. Maybe a podcast style with someone else. About time I did that on the channel, but I'll have to wait and see whether I can get that done. And then next week we'll be back to the normal content, streams, team previews, game week previews, and that kind of thing. So thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will catch you next time. Cheers all.